You won't believe this. He'll be loyal as a puppy.
Of all the quotes, you remembered that one. Oh,
Yeah.
blimey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and you've joined us once again for another episode of Monday Movies. This is our third week doing it. I'm Tom Gibbs from TGMA Productions, and I'm joined here by the legendary, the infamous Stan Wilks.
Probably words I would not assume would be associated with me, dude, but I'll take it. Yeah, I'm Stan. I run this channel, I guess. Love movies. This is why we're here on the very early days of Monday Movies. And Gibbsy, what are we talking about today, mate?
Oh boy.
Love it.
Today we're talking about RoboCop 3.
Hey.
Yeah.
Production design, all I can muster today, dude, because I don't have RoboCop 3 on like an individual DVD. It always comes as a box set. I've got Fred Decker's two first movies, Night of the Creeps, which is brilliant, and The Monster Squad, unfortunately on a Spanish Blu-ray, so it looks awful. But hey, these are his good films, guys. Fred Decker has made good films.
Yes. There is hope for the man.
There it is, yes. Awesome. But yeah, Gibbsy, take it away, because RoboCop 3 is not a film you had seen before. I've seen it enough times in my lifetime. So, what was your initial reaction?
Well, since our last episode, I watched it 2 times. I watched it for the first time to get a glimpse of the plot and what goes down, and I rewatched it again to sort of further nitpick the film and see what I could make of it. And there were a bunch of times through watching the film that it didn't feel like a RoboCop film, which I think is, I hate to start on a negative note, but I think that is one of the biggest problems with RoboCop 3, and is that RoboCop himself doesn't get that much of the spotlight as he did in the first 2 films, and for that, you feel like it's about the little kid, Nico, I think the name is.
Yeah, Nico, who is very androgynous. For the whole film, I could never tell if that was a boy or a girl. It's not modesty, but it's just the way the film was executed with the makeup and the acting choices. I just thought, are you a boy or a girl? This is scary. Yeah, that is a really interesting note, because from memory, it takes RoboCop about 20 minutes to just appear on screen.
Yeah, and you see like you see the action figure of RoboCop in Nico's bedroom, but you don't see RoboCop himself until, as you say, that the scene where he comes in to help out Lewis, provide him backup.
That's as far as the social commentary goes, as we get a little glimpse of a RoboCop action figure, which is obviously commenting on the fact that RoboCop became this not only iconic character, but a merchandise character as well. And yeah, that's as far as the satire goes. And the problem is, you said, we spoke about it on our episode of RoboCop 2, which you can also check out, guys, that RoboCop 2, despite not having the Basil Poledouris score, manages to capture the spirit of RoboCop, doesn't it? It has the mean-spiritedness, it has the sense of satire, maybe not so much as the original, but it's there. It really is there. And RoboCop 3 doesn't even have that. I don't think it even has an interesting RoboCop entrance. You look at RoboCop 2, and his whole foot stepping out of the burning car and what happens in here? Oh, he just kind of puts a gun on his arm and
he just puts a gun on his arm, shoots his way out of a car, and just sort of makes his entrance. Yeah, it doesn't feel the same.
And that's where the least of the issues lie, Gibbsy. What did you think of the pacing?
The pacing of the film, I found the film quite boring, to be honest. I hate to say it from a RoboCop film, but I don't often, if I'm watching a good movie on Netflix or Amazon Prime or anything like that, then I don't usually sort of check the time of the film, how long is left of the running time, because you're that engaged with the film that you almost just want to keep going and see what happens with the story. But with RoboCop 3, I found myself checking the clock every 10 minutes. Like, I was so ashamed to say that.
Yeah, it doesn't flow well at all, and I think inherently the problems lie in the script, because I think Gibbsy and I, we obviously talk off air as well, and I think I said to you, look, we're going to talk about this on air, that the state of Orion Pictures, the production company, really speaks volumes about why RoboCop 3 fails, because RoboCop 2 did not make the numbers they expected, so they think, okay, we need to appeal to a younger generation, try and mass market and bring in as much money as possible, and ultimately that was the end of Orion after they went bankrupt.
Things didn't go well.
It's been regurgitated so much before, and I know I'm going to get criticism here for saying what so many people have said before, but you can't aim RoboCop at a child audience. It doesn't work. You suck out everything that makes RoboCop work. The essence, the spirit, the not necessarily the violence, but the focus on making a world believable, a world grim and nasty and vile, so that when a shining knight in armor like RoboCop comes along, you root for him because you think, yeah, that guy's going to save the city. But you don't get that in RoboCop 3 because it's so kind of clean and PG-13. No.
Yeah, it's a lot more tame than the other two RoboCop films, which I thought was a proper kick in the balls in a way to what Paul Verhoeven had originally created. You know, that original concept.
Even Irving Kershner, RoboCop 2. I know we've mentioned that before, but that film still captures the spirit of it. And I mean,
yeah.
What is the first action scene in the RoboCop 3 again? It's the Splatterpunks, isn't it? What did you think of the Splatterpunks?
The Splatterpunks, when I first saw that that scene where you've got Anne Lewis and the Splatterpunks, the sort of showdown, I almost thought that the Splatterpunks were going to be the main antagonists throughout RoboCop 3. On a first watch through, because I was like, okay, you know, they're a big gang of sort of weird, punky-looking people, and they throw molotovs and shoot guns. But yeah, it's quite a cartoony sort of feel. But then you don't really see them again until the end of the film, and so I thought, hang on, you know, what happened there? Yeah, I thought it was quite an entertaining concept though.
And the problem with the Splatterpunks is, as you said, they're introduced, they never come back until the final third, and it feels like they're trying to comment on the fact that they're using criminals to work for the government when they're trying to fight off the police. I think, I've forgotten RoboCop 3 already. Did the police hire the Splatterpunks, or is it the OCP officers that hire?
So it's one by one, all of the policemen sort of gradually sort of put down their badge and their gun. They sort of walk out. They sort of quit on the spot. And it's at that point where OCP sort of go up to the criminals and say, you know, how would you like some extra work? You know, that
yes,
sort of tone. So just this one random member of the Splatterpunks that the police happen to have brought in.
That's actually my favourite scene in the film, Gibbsy. That one scene is just the police all dropping their badges saying, no, we're not going to fight for this corrupt state. That was a lovely, lovely scene, and I think it was really well handled. What did you think of it?
I thought that was quite nice. I thought it was the first moment where the metro, is it the Metro City? No, not
Delta City.
Delta City, that's it. But I thought it was the first time where the Detroit Police Department actually kind of stood up to OCP, because you sort of see them sucking up to the company, because fair enough, OCP do own them, but this time you sort of see that, you know, that sort of state of rebellion where they've actually all had enough, and to fight for their own well-being, they're actually saying, you know what, no, I'm not gonna be a part of your scheme anymore. I think that is quite nice.
Really nice, and it leads to quite a fun in inverted commas, fun scene towards the end where RoboCop uses his jetpack.
Hey, jetpack for the first time it's introduced.
Yes, I mean the design of it is nice, Gibbsy. I like the look of it. I just think it's impractical.
It does look cool. It kind of reminds me of, for some reason, have you seen Men in Black 3?
No, I haven't, but I know what you're on about.
Okay, you know what I mean when there's those jetpacks from that film. I get a vibe like that for some reason.
That's just not the best analogy to use, dude.
I don't know. It was the first thing I thought when I saw that jetpack. I was like, reminds me of that.
Love jetpacks. You know what? I am tempted one day to even get a RoboCop 3 toy just because the jetpack looks cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to spend not 100 odd quid for it, but if it's on sale, why not?
Yeah, give it a go. It could be an interesting thing to add to the set behind you there.
Oh yes, my Fred Decker collection.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I will say as well is the idea of it that we were mentioning just before we came on air, of the concept of RoboCop 3, of RoboCop joining a resistance movement and leading it and almost becoming an enemy of the state, which I think Frank Miller, the writer of this film, later takes to his RoboCop comics. That is really interesting. On paper, that is such a cool premise, but I just think it gets lost because it's trying to juggle all these other elements like Japanese robots and Yeah, like the Japanese interest in OCP and the resistance movement, and Anne Lewis, who just gets killed off 40 minutes in. It all doesn't really come
Yeah.
to balance, does it?
No, it could have been, yeah, as you mentioned, it could have been a really great concept for a third movie in the series, and the end to what could have been potentially quite a nice trilogy.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think it was very well executed. Sadly.
No, it isn't well executed. And even the music, everyone says, yeah, Basil Poledouris is back. And aside from a nice collection of cues here and there, I don't think the score is particularly memorable, because he's just recycling the RoboCop theme, but it's not really as memorable.
I mean, I quite like the fact that he has brought back the motifs, but that's those motifs that he brings back into, well, like the RoboCop action scenes, for example. They are sort of one of only a couple of things that remind me this is a RoboCop movie.
Yes.
and it's not just a movie about a bunch of rebels in being forced out of their homes.
It really loses that thread. You could have done some nice musical stuff with the idea of a rebellion. You really could have made that quite a triumphant score, to be honest, because it's about rebellion. It's about coming up against the system. How is that not exciting to watch? And I don't think it really has that, because then it has the other character as well, who is working for OCP and is helping Murphy when he goes back to his chair to recharge, and she becomes a member of the resistance movement. And I said this to my brother when we rewatched it, that is a lovely thread that you could have explored more, of someone who is inside OCP, who, seeing firsthand how this company operates, and suddenly going, I'm going to go join the resistance movement. Flesh that out, dude. Have that character maybe be a predominant role in the story, because it just kind of happens all of a sudden. 1 minute she's happy with OCP enough, and then she's joined the resistance movement. It's such a sudden.
It did feel like quite a quick change in the film, because it's that sort of doctor that's working with RoboCop while he's working for OCP still, isn't it? I can't remember her name for the life of me.
But yeah, Nico as well, who we mentioned earlier, for me is just, this isn't because it's a child actor at all. I think she's fine, but you just wonder, what was really the point? Was it really to have a character who was overly brilliant with technology, so you could have that character get into certain places to fix the plot holes in the story? I mean, that scene where she deactivates Ed 209 dude is one of the worst in the whole trilogy. It is such a middle finger to the first movie.
Yeah, it's one of my 3 or 4. I'm just looking at my notepad. I've got 3 or 4 what I've called WTF moments.
Oh, read them out. Go.
And that's one of them. So we've got my first one is the alarm at the barracks was my first one.
Yes.
So at the very beginning, when they are breaking into the police barracks to raid the equipment, and they blow up the gate, the big metal gate to go in. Michael Bay level explosions.
Yes.
That's
no one hears.
Yeah, and no one hears it. No one has a clue that it's going on. But then once, I'll come back to the ED-209 scene, because there's a couple of things I want to talk about with that as well. But when they break in, the guy's like, I've got this key card that I got from a dead police officer. They use that, and then that triggers the alarm, not the big explosion.
I didn't even think that, dude.
When they swipe the key card off, and then, oh no, this is it's a fake or something like that, or it's triggered the alarm somehow. But only then are the police even aware that someone's there.
Yes.
Not the robust gateway to the actual site being blown up. None of that at all. It didn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense as a sequence. And I remember that, you just reminded me, Gibbsy, that's where they check around the weaponry and they see, I'll save that for later. And it points to something off screen, and what is most likely the jetpack. And you just go, it's the most dodgy setup ever.
Yeah.
It's so clunky. It's the jetpack.
Yeah, it feels as if it was just sort of shoved in there as sort of a loose foreshadowing of what could potentially happen later on in the movie.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't think it was really necessary.
Not really. But what are your other WTF moments then? Do you have any more?
My second one is Nico hacking Ed 209. I'll do that. I was watching that and I just sort of thought, How? My first thought was, how has a small child been able to hack into one of the, at this point, is one of the government sort of patrol units?
Yeah.
Has she ever been able to do this before? And I get, the concept is, she's a kid, a child genius, and you could argue that it makes sense that she's trying to, that she's able to do so, but she's a child, and all of the other three members of the resistance that are there are just sort of stood there watching her try and hack the robot and not trying to do anything about it.
And also, Ed 209 is conveniently just standing still and not manoeuvring itself and moving around to try and locate where that person is that's trying to hack into him. You just think, why have you suddenly become surprisingly immobile? Move around and try and shoot at the kid, which I shouldn't be saying on air, really, but this is in the context of a film, guys and girls.
Yeah, if Ed 209 moved his right leg even just maybe a foot or two forward, then he would have shot at all of the members of the resistance. The kid would have just been sat there like, what do I do now?
Yeah. And that would have been interesting. I just find it bizarre that an Ed 209 is guarding that warehouse, really. Because the warehouse, we seem to be spending a lot of time on this warehouse, but I think for good reason. That warehouse scene, I just don't understand why it seems like a place with minimal security, right? It's like a fence.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like it's, Shawshank Prison or something, but there's an Ed 209 waiting outside. I just find that such a weird production design choice.
You'd have thought that if there was that level of machinery on guard at the police barracks, you'd have potentially had a couple of armed officers just patrolling outside and everything like that. Yeah, at least given it more of a feel that it's a maximum, not a maximum security place even, but just that people are more concerned about what's inside and it being robbed, which of course happened. My next one is about Nico again.
Nico's the root of the problem.
It's about Nico hacking again, oddly enough.
Dude, can you stop ganging up on Nico?
Oh well, it's this time, instead of right at the beginning of the film, this one occurs right at the end, where you've got the two Otoma robots that are fighting RoboCop.
Yeah, you mean the Japanese robots? Yes.
Yeah, and when Nico decides, oh, I know, I'm going to hack the two robots and have them sort of fight against each other.
So convenient.
One swing in, and they're each of them lose their heads and they're disabled. But you just think you could have had a really cool RoboCop fight scene with the two Otoma robots, but instead, nope, the Nico's going to hack him in, and she's going to save the day.
It's so convenient and so cheap, isn't it? No, because the whole film is supposed to lead up to this moment, and it just kind of happens. I think the funniest moment in the film for me, because I do think RoboCop 3 is, it's such a poor film, it really is. I'm not defending it at all, but I do think it has these little moments of genius to it, and I'm going to defend it right here. There's this lovely scene where they talk. I think from memory, there's this commercial about, do not kill yourself at work or something. Or I think a character in his office says, oh, if this happens, I'm going to kill myself. That's like a one-off joke. And then he walks into the OCP chairman's office and he gets fired. And so he leaves the room, and off screen you hear a gunshot or something, or he falls out the window. And I thought that's hilarious. I thought that was a lovely little detail.
Yeah, I think the guy that I know the scene that you're talking about, but I think he does end up committing suicide.
That was a decent scene because it kind of commented on the world a little bit and how people are being abused and manipulated by the system, and that was just a funny little way of doing it. And the little Japanese influences, because obviously Fred Dekker, director of these glorious movies, which maybe we'll have to discuss one day on Monday Movies, he wanted to infuse a lot more of Japanese culture into it. And I do think the idea of the ending, which I think is my favourite moment in the film, which is where the Japanese kind of, what's his name, the manager of that different company, he bows to RoboCop.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's a glimpse of what could have been, more connections to the samurai, because the whole idea of RoboCop being respected by the Japanese, for me, I find really interesting, genuinely interesting.
I think it's quite nice. I think one of the reasons they might have been tying that in is because I think at the time there were a couple of Japanese RoboCop commercials that were sort of starting to air around the country at the time. And so Potentially it was catering to that audience. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, who would know? Blimey. But those commercials, dude, they are so weird because the Robo suit is so kind of glossy, shiny, silver. They look so wrong. I'll have to send you a link later on because they are disturbing.
It does look strange.
But let's get on to RoboCop himself, dude. Not to interrupt you, of course.
Yeah, no, I don't think I had much else to say really. So
okay.
No, you're all good.
We peaked 21 minutes in, but Robert Burke, bless his soul, I actually think he gave the best performance as RoboCop he could have given, considering the circumstances. What do you think?
I'm going to have to agree with you there, I think, because it was. I feel kind of bad for Robert Burke in a way because he's been thrown into this film that almost isn't really about RoboCop, and it's got a whole nother thing going on. And it's a shame that they couldn't have Peter Weller return because he was busy in another project. I'm not quite sure what the name was at the time.
Naked Lunch.
Naked Lunch. Oh.
Brilliant David Cronenberg film. Check it out.
Indeed, other Monday movies.
But yeah, sorry. What were you saying?
But yeah, I think the way that he portrays RoboCop, he's tried quite nicely to recreate it from what you see in the previous two films.
Yeah.
And his sort of, you can see he's trying to recreate the speech pattern quite nicely, and even things like that, which I quite like.
He's got some good lines as well. There's a portion of the film where I think his performance really shines, and he gets a moment to just have a ball playing RoboCop, and I think it's where he starts cleaning up the streets. There's this segment that very much mirrors the sequence in the original, which is brilliant, you know, where he hits the streets for the first time, where he's just about to leave the resistance movement underground, and he turns around and goes, "Unfinished business." I like that quote. That's the first good quote for me. In that montage where he does clean up crime, he talks to a pimp with a very bright pinky car. And I think he says...
that seems quite funny.
I can't remember what he says, but he stops a potential rape happening, and he says, "She said no," and then punches the guys away, which I thought was lovely. So RoboCop is anti-rape, which is always a good thing. RoboCop cleans up the streets. And there's a lovely moment where someone's asking for a light. That's it, because he goes back to the kind of OCP soldier division, doesn't he? And someone asks for a light.
Yeah.
He says, "Does anyone got a light?" "Allow me, scum."
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. See, there are these little moments. I mean, not to be too positive, because the film is awful. It really is. But I do think it has these little moments of genius to it.
Yeah, it's those few scenes that sort of remind you that the character of RoboCop is still present.
Yes.
And you know, it's the film, even though it sort of shies away from it being about RoboCop, you know, he's still there and he's still active within the setting. And those scenes that you talked about are quite a really good examples of that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the saddest thing, dude, is obviously, I'll point to it for another time, even though I don't need to really, because people know it's already there. But Fred Dekker, this RoboCop 3 was supposed to kind of be his breakthrough because he made those two movies. They didn't really make much money. They didn't really put him on the map enough. So RoboCop 3, his whole career is riding on it. And we both know RoboCop 3 is both critically and commercially maligned. So it kind of ended his career, and I think that's really sad. Because ultimately this film was out of his control, really. And he has been very candid about this movie, and he's been very honest and said, "Look, the film isn't good at all. I tried my best," and I think that's really admirable. But it's sad though, because as you said, this could have been a really nice conclusion to RoboCop, and it just kind of ends up being, what was this?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite nice that he understands that you know, the RoboCop wasn't as a great a film as it could have potentially been. And I think you're right. It's a bit unfair on Fred Dekker, really, to have, you know, what his film directing career sort of be based off of RoboCop 3 alone.
Yeah, it's a really sad note to end on, but we are reaching the end of the review, guys. So I think the best way for me to end this and surmise the movie is very bad film with not an awful lot going for it, but with very small, infrequent little kernels of gold. Weirdly, how would you surmise the film for you, dude?
I think you've put it quite nicely there. I think, Stan. It's not the greatest film I've ever seen in the world, but there are a few moments within the film where that you can sort of look at, and it's got a certain charm to it in certain places.
Yeah.
So look out for those if you are to watch RoboCop 3.
But yes, there we go, guys. So thank you very much for watching episode 3, conveniently on RoboCop 3 on Monday Movies. Gibbsy, where can we find you?
You can find me at my YouTube channel, which I'm most active on. If you find it, I'm sure Stan will put a link in the description. If you go to TGMA Productions, I'll also be uploading this episode through there. And I do music stuff outside of Monday Movies. So if that's up your alley, then you can have a look at that.
Gibbsy is a brilliant composer, guys. Listen to The Continuum. Lovely, lovely little EP. I'm at Stand Wilks 10. You can probably find that in the description below. Also, I upload music myself. I've got a few short films on here, and there are obviously the previous episodes of Monday Movies. So check them out, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, Gibbsy. Great seeing you again, and we shall see you guys on the next episode.
Indeed. Mind how you go.
See you, dude.
See you soon.